Warning: some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Coach Greg Adams, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Dr. Thunder's in the building. Good Doc is here. What you got going on?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to publicly thank you for agreeing to do this interview. I know this, I'm a much smaller content creator than you are, and you don't really stand to gain a whole lot out of this. And so I appreciate you being willing to sit down with me and have this conversation.
Absolutely, man. I think, we met in person, and so we have a much more of a personal friendship and appreciation of each other. So it's not like, I'm doing this just out of the blue. We met, we had a chance to talk and hang out over a weekend at a convention and all of that stuff. And you've been a great supporter of me. So paying it back. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. So that convention you're talking about was Donovan Sharp's CME, his Conference of Masculine Excellence.
Indeed.
And when you were up doing your presentation, it's like you were missing some buttons, and I happened to have a few of them. I had
the buzzer.
I had the prices wrong. Nope. And I had nope on there, and I turned my iPad up to try to help a little bit, but that was mostly just for comedy.
Yeah, and it's funny when I don't have those sound effects, I feel like I'm missing a key part of the act when I'm talking live to people, and I have to substitute it with something. Maybe next year coming up, I have a few more speaking engagements. Maybe next year I'll bring some of my buttons.
Yeah. All right. So why did they call you coach?
They call me coach because I was a basketball coach for pretty much my entire adult life, coaching kids. So I've been called coach since I was 18 or 19 years old. And here I am 30 years later almost, and I'm still the coach, but I'm just in a different capacity. So the name Coach Greg Adams has been with me for forever.
And your coaching, so you coach girls basketball for the most part?
Yeah, I coach girls basketball. And then I started doing fitness training, sports training of a bunch of different sports, and then fitness training of adults. So they all call me coach. I've been coach everywhere I've gone. So yeah, man. Yeah, did the basketball coaching for about close to 15, 16, 17 years. And, coached a lot of young people and got to learn from them, and they learned from me.
Now, speaking of Coach Alini, you have a number of nicknames.
Yeah.
And you have sort of the beginning of your show where you go through, a bunch of your nicknames, and you mind sharing that with us right now?
Yeah, man. I have my 30-second speech, what I call my elevator pitch of who I am. And I try to get guys to understand you got to tell people who you are, and you have to be able to do it in 30 seconds. So one of my elevator pitches is the Bruce Wayne of this ish, and the King of Kings, the King of Content, the Speaker of Truth, yours truly, the notorious one, AKA Mr. Coach Alini, better known as the Prognosticator Coach Adamas. All right, Prognosticator Coach Adamas. And yeah, man, I think those evolve over time. I mean, there's always a segment of my series since I've been on YouTube where I've adopted some title. And, once it was the King of Content, and that was because I had so many channels. And I thought that if I can put out, like, if you followed all my channels at once, you would see that there'll be some days I put out 5 videos on 5 channels, and they're all different, or 2 of the 3 are different. And then the Bruce Wayne is that's the mysterious type that is so much more of a introverted type of person, but is a superhero to many, and has his moral stance that he defends. People can lean on him to send the bat signal out, and then he can turn into Batman. So the Bruce Wayne is kind of something that I adopted. King of Kings would be I crowned myself that after Hafiz debate. And then I said, we all are kings in this sphere, and I'm the king of those kings. And it wasn't, obviously the King of Kings has been attributed to one Jesus Christ. So I'm not trying to lean on that, but it was more of I challenged everyone to a debate. I challenged all the dating coaches. I challenged anybody that had anything negative to say about me, and no one would ever challenge me. And I said, hey, you guys want to make videos about me? I don't know, but I gave people an open floor to do so. Nobody did anything, so I said I'm the King of Kings. The Coachellini comes from Mussolini, because I have a little tyrant in me and a little bit of a dictatorship, fascist, if you will, I suppose. And Mussolini represented that for like 2 decades in Italy, just historically. His end, I don't want nothing to do with, but that's neither here nor there. And Coach Stradamus came from something that I've been quite a fan of, Michel Nostradamus, for all of my life since I was a teenager. And he put off quatrains of predictions. And then I have been making predictions that have seemingly been able to come true. So if you combine all of these, I've come up with this series of nicknames.
And one of the things that you say is the 8-time demonetized champion. So folks have, and you say this frequently, it's like they come after you, and the stuff that you're saying, you're exposing a lot of debauchery and stuff that other folks are doing. It's not stuff that you're condoning. It's stuff that you're exposing. And you'll get a channel demonetized or flagged, but the folks that are actually engaged in those behaviors and putting all kinds of lewd, lascivious, bogus stuff out, it seems like nobody even touches them.
I have not able to been explain what's going on YouTube, because anytime I watch someone, and some popular acts here, they curse, they talk about things in a more graphic way than I do. They're outlandish. You see fighting on theirs, and I'm simply just one talking person with an opinion, and I can't seem to figure out why they are monetized and I'm not. I just can't seem to figure out what happened. I must be on a blacklist of YouTube where they're like, nothing gets monetized for this guy. So any channel that I create, it seems to, after a while, gets demonetized, and there's no explanation for it. My show, I always say this is a family show, although, it's not really a family show, but I say it because I'm censoring myself quite a bit, as opposed to a lot of people who aren't censoring themselves at all, and they're raking home AdSense, and they don't seem to go through the issues that I go through, and I just don't understand it. So I've had 8 channels or better demonetized. So I've always said, hey, I'm the demonetized champ, and that's kind of how I got the Notorious nickname as well. It's because every time I have something going, YouTube demonetizes it. So I said I'm the Notorious one at this particular point. It's somewhat weird. It's a little frustrating, but what I try to do is not think about it too much.
Now, this is interesting because I have, and sorry, sorry you're going through that. And I appreciate you being willing to say the stuff that you say. Yeah. That is getting you demonetized. But it's too bad that is that's the reality. I've got a buddy, and his channel's called God Rules, and he covers all kinds of stuff that sort of had been on the edge of conspiracy. And we have a show together. It's a live stream we do usually on Thursdays called Two Dads React. And he's got, on one of his channels, he's got 500,000 subs, and on another one he's got, I don't know, 75,000 or something like this. And he was talking to me about how he believes that his channel got what he called rated. And rated is basically behind the scenes when, if you have a video that's been rated, in other words, it doesn't perform the way that you think it ought to perform. So your subscribers are being sent notifications of the video, but it's not being sent to people that are not subscribers.
Right.
Not as much, right? And so it makes it hard to grow when all you're able to talk to is the people that are already subscribed, right? And he was talking about how he went through copiously and figured out which videos were which videos had been rated, and then he deleted those videos, and then over time those videos stopped penalizing the other. Thanks for watching my video so far. There's all kinds of ways that you can support below. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Also, become a channel member where you'll get access to all of the archived videos. Now, back to the videos. And then over time, those videos stopped penalizing the other. It stopped having a negative impact on the other videos on the channel. So he thinks he's got some of this stuff figured out, because they went hard after his channel for a period of time because of a lot of the kinds of things that he was saying. Because he was kind of oligarchy, New World Order. He was talking on a lot of that kind of stuff.
Just hitting them with the
new World Order.
Right. But anyhow, so one thing that you talk about frequently is the marriage wheel.
Yeah.
The marriage wheel. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the marriage wheel is?
Yeah. The marriage wheel is undefeated. That's what it is. No, it's basically a predictor of what I call patterns of human behavior in relationships that tend to happen between men and women. And they've been things that kind of everybody knows these things. It's very common. And we talk about a point where a marriage kind of falls apart, and it falls apart for mostly the same things. And I identify those things, but the marriage wheel gives an indicator of, it's a predictor of what your marriage will probably look like, whether you stay together or get divorced. So it doesn't matter. It's not like, hey, you're going to get divorced at the end. It actually takes into account what happens if you stay together through this wheel, and or if you get divorced, if you do it again, it takes into account of how that looks. And most people who have seen it, they say, you must have been in my marriage. You must have been in my marriage, because this is almost exactly how it went. And I said, well, we're human beings. We pretty much do the same thing. And many of us think that we're successful because of us. But I think where some people are successful because they don't have any choice, or they just stick through it, and other people do not. It's not that you guys were better partners and better people. It was just that somebody decided to put up with it and not. And the wheel takes you through 4 stages, and the 4 stages are the connection phase, which is it feels so good, doesn't it? You meet your partner and they're wonderful, and you really need to, go the distance with them. And if you're a player, you'll say, I don't want to be a player no more. I got my girl. All right. And if she's for these streets, she says, hey, I don't want to be in these streets no more. I'm yours. All right, baby, I'm yours. And then essentially everybody goes through that. Most people can get through the connection phase very relatively easy, right? It shouldn't be many breakdowns. And if there's breakdowns, I would just tell people, just be apart. The second phase is going to be the investment phase. That's when you invest money financially for the guy. And then, of course, you invest bodies and seed and all of that stuff. And then based on that, there's a great investment that goes forward because of this. And this is going to tie you guys together for a short period of time or a long period of time, no matter if the relationship goes. The third stage is the bait and switch. This is when, and on our side, we say the woman changes the rule of the game. She changes the rules midstream. And then if you adapt, you continue the marriage. But that doesn't mean the marriage is going to be successful. You're just going to be henpecked. If you don't adapt, she shows you stage number 4, which is the disconnection phase, which could get legal and ugly and hurtful and painful. And it actually can affect your kids and your investments in stage number 2. So we take you through those 4 stages. Every marriage is going to go through those. And then what's going to happen is the final stage is the re-entry after a divorce, or you continue to be henpecked, or you can choose to go the many ways that we have in the sphere: SYSBM, passport, free agent, pickup artist. You can just go and try something different as opposed to trying the same thing again.
Now, you just said this thing about pickup. Now,
Yes.
You have been very critical of dating coaches.
It's an angle. Yeah, it's an angle. I go in on them pretty aggressively.
Yeah, so cold approach, masculine frame, um, all of the, running game.
Yeah, running game. Yep.
Yeah.
Spinning plates.
Yeah, spinning plates. That's great. And all of these things seem to me to be forms of prioritizing the peace leave.
Correct. Well, some people might call it the ultimate simping.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, the ultimate simping. Yes.
Now, speaking of peace leave, you have coined a number of phrases.
Yes.
The term monkey double backflips, peace leave, of course.
Yep.
Meet.
Yes.
Can you talk to us? Pause. Can you talk to us about meet?
Yeah. Oh, meet. Money, energy, attention, and time. And I came up with that, and I can't take 100% credit because people were talking about ATM at the time, which is attention, time, and money. And I heard content creators talking about that for quite a long time. And I decided to switch the letters around and add energy to it because I think energy is important. It's a resource that is renewable, transferable, and so forth. So I attached energy to it and then turned it into money, energy, attention, and time. And the purpose of that is to get people to understand you're going to transact one of those four, if not all of those four, or a series of those four, if you're dealing with women. All right. I don't care if you're running game. I don't care if you're cold approaching. I don't care if you're pay for play. I don't care if you're married, engaged, you have a steady girlfriend, or you have a series of girlfriends. That's what you're going to transact. And it's to kind of get men to understand more than women, because I think women inherently know this. They ask for it. They're just not aware that it's a form of payment. Women might say, because a woman might be aware of it if she says, I don't want your money, I just want your time, right? That's a form of her saying money's not that important at this moment. I just want to spend time with you. Well, time's a resource. It's a great resource. It's not even a renewable resource. It's the most important. And I think what she's trying to say is, I'm not a gold digger. But what I try to teach men is, well, if you just transact time, you're actually losing more than money. I mean, it's actually almost more egregious because opportunity cost lost. All right. The amount of time that she might expect, which is not, she can't tell you, is it 1 hour, 2, 4, 8, the entire weekend? And she might waste your entire weekend. For a man that is on his purpose, you don't have an entire weekend to give up. For a man with children, you don't have an entire weekend to give up. So when a lot of guys want to say a guy pays and a guy doesn't pay, my purpose of meet is to show that all men pay. So you must be very specific on how you're going to deal with women. I don't mind if you waste time. I think it's dumb for a young person to do. But if you're saying I'm going to use time in place of money and make yourself feel better in dealing with women only with time, I think that's not the way to think about it as a young man. If you actually switch it around, the money would actually be the better way to deal with it, not the time. And I also think, and I'll add to this, for guys that use time and they say it's worse to use money, well, the problem is a guy that has money doesn't have a lot of time. So you're leveraging something that you have because you're broke. You don't have money. Men who say I don't pay normally are guys that don't have money and a lot of time. But a person with a lot of money and not a lot of time, he can't leverage the time that like you leverage it. So he can't spin plates. He can't run game. He can't cold approach. He can't deal with relationships. But you penalize him for using money. And you say that money guy should use time. He doesn't have. So it's kind of one of those things that it creates a more of a conversation without saying you're wrong, he's right, he's right, he's wrong.
Now, okay, so the marriage topic is interesting because you have said frequently over and over that you're not against marriage.
Correct.
You said over and over you're not against marriage. Now, you also think it's maybe foolish to get married in many cases,
In many
but you're
cases.
not right.
Yeah.
And I've heard, and I recall you saying several times that the best way to have kids is in a marriage.
Correct.
And I've heard you
Should be the only
criticize.
one. Should be the only
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And I've heard you criticize both men and women for doing things to blow their marriage up if they have kids.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So, I've told a lot of people in my book, Free Agent Lifestyle, it's kind of something that people don't go into. They kind of listen to the content, but they don't really go into the book. In the book, I specifically say, at a point in your life where you don't have leverage and options, marriage, cohabitation, and long-term relationships shouldn't even be on the table for a young man. It's this hard thing because his drive is to get sex, in many ways have companionship. So the way you do that is to get into a relationship. But when you don't have leverage and options, this is when BS starts to appear in your life, and you have to, spend a lot of time putting out fires because you don't have leverage. Now, going into it in terms of having kids and those type of things, the type of people who face significant problems when they have kids is people who don't have money, right? Money's a big problem. So when the money's not there, all of a sudden, see, when you were in love and the woman said, I just want your time and not the money, it was fine. But then now that we got kids, not having money is a big problem. And, or if you guys split up, and you get put on child support, or there's a divorce, there's alimony, there's some financial situation, you lose your house. Now, all of a sudden, isn't that money important? Isn't that leverage important? Isn't that, those are important now, but of course, we tell people to overlook that and just go for the love. But then the thing that I'm telling you is important, leverage options, money, taking accountability of your time. Now, all of those things are important in a marriage. And when kids come along, they're going to change the direction of your marriage. I don't care who you are. And every now and then I'll get a couple of people that try to fight me on this one, but it's going to change the way you're intimate with your wife. It's going to change the amount of time you can put and energy and put into your spouse, the attention. Okay. The demands of children is great. And I heard some people say, just lock your kids in a room, and it doesn't work like that. These are people obviously that don't have kids. So, first of all, you can't do that, but
Right.
yeah, they were like, you can't lock your kids in a room so you can be intimate with your wife. I'm gonna just let you know that right now. You're gonna get a police call at some point. But at some point, these marriages implode before year 5. Before these kids are 5 years old, they implode, which I think is despicable. I'm thinking, why in the hell would you have gotten married and made kids? Or why would you have made kids at all? It's despicable that you can't make 5 years. And so I call it, my term is the praying mantis. And I attribute it from the male side. The female goes into this, I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. My love tank is empty. And the kids are minors. And it's a selfish need for her to require from a man what is difficult to give back to her and the children. The guy's not a machine, neither is she. So these people who blow up these marriages, and then these kids live out of backpacks for the rest of their lives, and then they potentially have to have some alienation involved. Then the father has to live less than, right, to pay her child support typically. And not only that, if he does do well financially, he has to hide it from his baby mama. He has to hide it from his ex-wife of 10 years so she doesn't take him into court. This is all despicable type behavior that I identified in the marriage will. And I say, why don't we talk about these behaviors when I address them? People don't want to talk about it. They just want to say, but what about love? And you're just bitter and hurt. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about some serious issues that face millions of people, the majority of people in our country, and nobody wants to talk about it. It's interesting.
Yeah, it seems to me that certain people are just not open to hearing empirical data.
Correct.
When you start talking empirical data, start talking statistics, studies, research, you start talking that way. And a lot of folks, the way that they perceive reality is anecdotal or personal experience
Correct.
supersedes, overrides any sort of scientific, data. And so it's incredibly difficult to get those folks to move even an inch. What do you think of that?
Well, that's kind of how people look at it. Again, I had done a show before, many shows, but I did a show talking about your intimacy with your wife is going to decline, right? Sexless marriages. And I was giving examples, a couple people, not me, it's like, what does you have to do with the rest of the story? I just gave you the percentages. I don't know. I gave you the scenarios. Most people can relate to it. Well, I'll just lock my kids in a room and we'll just do this and we'll just do that. And you can just do that. And people simplify these issues by saying, well, all you have to do is, and people could just do is, and again, like you're saying, they're just going to ignore the data and say what you could do, what you should do, and what I do. Those three things aren't even factors in the conversation when we're talking about a great percentage of people. If I say 33%, 40%, 50, 60, 70, then the woulda, coulda, I should, I did comes into the party. And we're like, and what does that mean? And oftentimes the only solution that they have is empirically a simple solution. Lock your kids in the room so you can have relations with your wife. And you might do that to your children, but many of us have children that we could not do that with. And these are the type of examples that you talking about, the anecdotal example. And I said, okay, that anecdotal example can't correct the 33%, the 40, the 50%. Can we deal with these numbers? People don't want to do it.
Yeah. And one thing, and people tend to look with a side eye at statistics because we know that politicians and others use statistics in a way that's disingenuous frequently. And so that has sort of poisoned their mind towards statistics. But the way that you mitigate, the way that you balance that issue is you consult multiple studies, multiple, yes. and you make sure you do your research of the way the surveys were conducted. Was this thing double blind? Is this process actually falsifiable? You ask all of these kinds of questions. And that's what it is that I do when I look at these studies. I don't just say, okay, I saw one study, it says the number that I like, and so then I'm going to go with that. Yep. No, I look at multiple sources. Okay, the CDC says this. Okay, is there another collection agency I can go to see if I can find a similar thing? And if I cannot, okay, well, maybe I'll talk about it, but I can also reveal what my source is.
Yep.
Most folks are not going to be willing to reveal what their source is.
Correct.
Okay, but what we're talking about is you've done the work, you have conducted the research, you've revealed your sources, and they still won't listen to what it is that you're saying.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, I can't win for losing.
Yeah, you can't win. And you did all of the work, and it's easy it's just easy for people who don't want to deal with the issue to dismiss the issue. I could say the same thing if somebody was hitting me with something that I didn't agree with and they leaned on numbers. The easiest thing to do was dismiss it and say, well, whatever. I don't have any time for that. We've experienced this in 2020. Well, I ain't getting sick, so I ain't have to worry about these numbers. Right. So if they believe they're not getting divorced, if they think they're not falling out of love, if they think they're never going to have child support, they could just throw it away. It ain't going to happen to me. So my love is like no other love. That's kind of something that we kid people on because that's what they're going to say. Well, that happened to you guys, but hey, not my girl. And my girl is different. And I got my girl in check and our love is like no other love. So how could this happen? Well, they don't understand that many of these situations started just like young men and young women who watch my show started. It started that you guys liked each other and had a crush. You were lustful. And then it proceeded from there.
Yeah. And the realist. You're a realist.
A realist.
I'm
yes.
a real. Okay. Realism is not really about being a pessimist or crapping over everybody's parade or anything like that. It's actually a masculine trait. It's something that you must do. You can't be like, you know what? I'm just going to leave the door unlocked at the house because, hey, I choose to see things positive. I just choose to be positive. Okay, that's great. But that dude that comes in the house when you're sleeping, okay, now what?
Right. Yeah. I think you're gonna feel stupid. I'd rather not feel stupid, right? Right.
All right. So your sort of red pill, your red pill, story is interesting. When you were red pill, when you sort of became aware that the game was different and that there was something wrong. I've heard you frequently say that this actually happened to you after your marriage ended.
Correct.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, people do believe that the marriage was the thing that got me in looking at the current red pill space, and it wasn't. I was still kind of just, once I got divorced, it was pretty amicable. I'm sorry, once we separated, it was amicable. So there wasn't any fireworks or anything like that. It was just kind of like, okay, we're in. And I went my way, she went her own way. And I was out there in these streets, okay, immediately and enjoying it. Then a couple of years, and that was right when Instagram had become popular, right at the beginning of Instagram's reach, where it was just an absolute carousel. It was crazy. People were flying. I mean, it was absolutely insane. But what happened was I tired of that after a year and a half. So I separated year or so. I'm like, I'm already tired of this. This is crazy. These women are nuts. And they were just doing crazy stuff. So a friend of mine was trying to get me back into the relationship mind. And he was actually a client of mine. And he was like, oh, just give him one more chance. Right. So I respected the guy. And I went on the site called eHarmony.
Oh,
so it was, at first it was a Christian site, but it became more secular around 2014-ish, something like that. Right. So they didn't really brand it as a Christian site, but the way it operated was completely different than any other website, right? Any other site. So the idea was not a hookup. You couldn't even hook up fast enough. The way they fed you people, it was just so slow. And the intent was relationship on eHarmony. Like, if you're wasting all this time answering compatibility questions and all of these things, you're in for a relationship. Well, I met a few young ladies on eHarmony, and I was down to picking two. One girl was ready to go. The other one was kind of ready. I got rid of the one who was ready to go. I picked the wrong one. So, but these were millennial women. Okay. So these women were, at the time, 28, and millennial, different generation. I had married someone. We were all Generation Xers, right? So I'm divorced and I'm messing with it. Anyway, long story short, she taught me a lot about modern dating. She was a modern woman. She's a lawyer, educated, and had reach, social butterfly, extrovert. She's everything I was not. And, because she was dealing with wealthy people and wealthy clients, she had to host clients, and clients would fly her here and do all of this stuff. So, and they would invite her to box seats and suites and all of this stuff just for her showing up. Anyway, it was a rude awakening because I was coming from marriage not that long ago. So my next relationship, I'm thinking this is kind of like, this is my wife. So this is what goes along with it. And I pushed that on her. Well, I don't think she wanted that. And so she pushed back quite a bit on me, to the point where it confused the hell out of me. I was confused. And it had nothing to do with kind of like, did I understand women or not? I was just confused as to why people were doing the things that they were doing. The reason why was it was a new age. It was just a new age of how relationships work. People used the term partners, not spouse, not boyfriend, not girlfriend. People were open to open marriages and open, it was just completely foreign to me. So I frustrated myself with her, which forced me to start looking for answers on the internet. That's how I got to the red pill space. So I'm started looking like, wait a minute. I remember one instance, she had to go meet with her ex-boyfriend and he wanted to take her to dinner. Look, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on that I could reveal, but the reality was she came from a lifestyle that she dated. It was almost like she was a sugar baby. All right. Young woman, she dated older men that were established, that were stable, that were somewhat marriage minded, not dudes at the nightclub. She didn't do all of that stuff. I'm sure she did a little bit here and there, but she always dated men who were mature, established in that. So these men would do a lot for her, things that I wasn't doing. Like I struggle paying for dates, right? Paying 100%. And I would oftentimes get her to pay the tip. Can she pay the tip? She's looking at me like I'm crazy. We're going to take a trip to Vegas. And she's like, we ain't flying first class. So, and I'm like, from LA to Vegas? Hell no, we're not flying first class. Well, I'm used to flying first class. And yes, doing my research, she dated millionaires. She dated men who had their shit together. I met them personally. So I'm just not ready. And what I realized was I wasn't ready. And a lot of men aren't ready. They think they're ready to be with people like this. And these people are in a different space. They're in a different mindset, especially with modern people. So it sent me on the internet going, why are women doing this? Why does this? What does this mean? And then I'm hitting time like this, right? I'm hitting red pill spaces. I'm hitting MGTOW, right? And I'm going, what? And so they're telling me hypergamy, shit I ain't never heard about, right? Monkey branching. They're telling me about, and I'm going, then it starts into, MRA. So I'm learning things about marriage, divorce, and court. At that time, I was still going through court, family court. So everything kind of came together at one time to make me understand dealing with younger modern women and then dealing with divorce and child support and custody and marriage. So as you see, that's the majority of my show, because that is the majority of stuff that I started watching around that time.
See, now, one thing you were talking about, it seems to me that you told a little bit of this story, the part about how you wanted her to get the tip, and you were concerned because you didn't have any money.
Oh yes.
Like, and it was like rolling the dice, giving them
on
the
that
card.
credit card. I had a credit card, boy. We went out to a comedy show. So we had a comedy show. And again, I think at the time I'm paying my marital home's rent, my rent. I previously lived in my car. I'm still driving the same car that I lived in, trying to date this chick who was Ford Explorer. So I'm out of her financial league. And for some reason, she sees something in me, because to be honest, when we met on eHarmony, where I lived was one of the most expensive zip codes there is in the country. So that's what she saw. She saw a black man that lived in this area, and the area is Newport Coast. You can't be poor living there. So she just assumed that I had money somewhere. I don't know what the hell's going on. And I take her out to a comedy show. And I remember I was so broke. That I probably had $75 room on this credit card. And the bill comes and it's $69.75, right? But I don't know how much. I'm like, you just whatever. And this is what I tell guys, don't broke date, because I'm stressing. I'm waiting for them to come back, card decline. And but I know once the card comes, I can't leave a tip. I don't have enough room to tip on the card. So I remember we're watching the show, we're laughing, sniggling, and I'm sweating bullets signing this credit card slip. So I asked her, I was like, you know what? I didn't bring any cash. Can you leave the tip? The look on her face the look on her face was like, she looked at me like, are you fucking serious? I think she had $3. She just threw it on the table like, are you fucking crazy? Right. So a lot of times guys deal with this thing, and we can blame the women all we want. And I'm trying to get guys to understand this. You can blame the women and you can say, well, she should have went 50-50 and you shouldn't have done this and you shouldn't have done that. What I tell guys is you need to get your finances under control. That's the number one thing you got to do. If you're dating and that is where you are and you're worried about going 50-50 and who's going to tip, you should not be dating at all. You just give it up. Throw the towel in. Okay.
Yeah. No romance without finance.
Exactly.
And, yeah. And, you know, part of that story reminds me of, what is it? What's the name of that Dave Chappelle movie where they're getting high the whole movie?
Oh, something baked, half baked, or something.
Yeah, half baked, half baked. Yeah. And when he goes on the date with this with the girl, and he's got like a running tally of how much money he has, and it keeps going down and down until I guess a bum wanted some money, and so he reached in, and then the meter started going up because he stole some money from the bum.
Man, I tell you, man. I mean, those type of scenarios, a lot of men are facing out here. So if you're asking for women to go 50-50, you're facing that scenario. It's not that these guys have money and they don't want to spend it. It's the fact that they don't have any money and they want to go halvesy with the girl at least. But a lot of guys will be like, well, my girl pays me. And I'm just like some of those the guys, man, just make me crack up because, you know, you're like, okay, I would love to see more context there. You know, I'm like, show me a picture of this woman. How much time do you got to spend with them? She's buying your time, essentially. We need more context before you say that, well, I get girls who pay me. We need a lot more context. She can't just be a ghost out here and you say that. So I would always tell them, man, I need a photo of this woman. And that would end that story right away.
Yeah, this is interesting. To, you know, the 50-50 topic, of course, is that's a big topic, especially different time period. You were talking about millennials and how they're just totally different. You and I are Gen X.
Yeah.
And I think that you're a year younger than I am.
I'm 47.
I'm 48.
Okay, so yeah, I turned 48 this year.
Yeah, and I turned 49 this year. And I think just remembering back on is your birthday in October?
October, yeah. I think
mine's in
October's birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm well, I don't need to give the date.
Yeah, they be looking you up on the internet. Yeah, they be on the internet looking you up.
but it's so we're both, I think are you Libra then, or are you the Libra? Yeah, so we're both Libras, we're both Gen X. And one thing that's interesting, I'll get back to the 50-50 thing, is I find that Black men that are Gen X have a really, really hard time just facing the fact that the communita is done and we must move on. We must, you can't keep trying to fix something. You know, it is, to use your term, reprehensible the way that Black men have been treated by the community, been exiled, been excommunicated, and then the so-called educated lames, the ones that actually get off their duff and do something, are not the priority. They're not prioritized, it seems, by our women. And I can tell plenty of stories of goofy rejections based on stuff that has nothing to do with long-term, productivity, consistency. Is this the kind of person that I want to, be around my kid? Any of that kind of stuff. It's not that stuff. It's this swag over substance garbage. And I find myself still very much conflicted with this idea of letting it burn. And I interviewed I have a show called Thunder Thoughts, and I had another content creator named Keep It 100 on the channel, and I can't remember exactly what the topic was, but one thing that he said in that conversation was the idea of letting it burn. It's sort of a misnomer, because letting it burn seems to letting it burn means that it isn't already burning. Like, you have some control of if it burns or not. Like, if you do something, that's going to be the thing that fixes it. But letting it burn, even the expression let it burn is problematic, because it gives you some sort of sense that you have some control of it, and you don't have any control.
You don't.
You have zero control. So can you talk a little bit about the Black community, maybe men in our generation, and I think you get kind of the idea.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's a good thing. I'm glad people are trying to take ideas and look into it further. So I understand what he's saying. I think my opinion of the let it burn is not that. I think it is not trying to put out the fire. So I suppose that's where the control might come from, by contributing to help it from burning. So, I'm not going to contribute. I'm not going to bring a bucket of water or spit or anything to this one. I'm going to release this to where it needs to go. And unfortunately, I feel sorry for a lot of men. I know people believe maybe they care about Black community or a Black community or Black people or whatever it is. They have an honest, sincere care about it. I'm not sure why at this point, because the evidence is very evident that there's some issues that are not going to be rehabbed through conversation. Okay. It's going to take generational correction, which, if we can talk about it, a man in his 40s and a woman in his 40s, we probably would be very right to talk about how we correct these issues. But you got to get everybody 16 to 32 to cooperate, which is not going to happen. I think the community does need a reorganization, if you will, and it has to be letting people be who they are in their Blackness, which people don't want to do. They don't want to be, like women who are young, they don't want Black men who are focused on the right thing. They tend to want Black men who are swag, dreadlocks and gang. They seem to win. In my years when I was young, it was the dudes with the Escalade and the spree reel rims, was going to be the guy who got the girl 9 times out of 10. And later on, that girl could course correct. And what happens in the Black community, a lot of the people who want to pair up are often older Blacks, right? And they'll be like, well, I'm 38 and 42 and single mother, and you have your shit together and you have degrees and stabilities. Let's pair up and be power couples. And it's like, no. And I've been critical of other content creators kind of making that hey, we're putting people together. And I'm like, old people who have been past their prime, male and female, people who have been married and divorced twice, people who are single mothers, people who had their chance. It's too late. And what you said was the men who are prioritized in the so-called Black community aren't the people who have their head on straight. This is in general, as opposed to other communities. We can take Asians and then whites just right off the top. Those men are prioritized. Like, the women don't run around with what the equivalent of Pookie and Chad for very long. They'll do it for a little bit of time. Okay, not up until their 30s in general. It's getting like that in America now, but they'll put that away around 24. Let's put that away. We had our fun. 24, 25. Let's lock this shit down. Let's stop playing games. Well, typically in the Black community, it's late into the game, 30, 32, 34, 40, 45. And then it's kind of like, okay, you're put together. And the minute you say, well, I don't want any single mothers, then there's a problem. I think the Black community should go through a reconstruction. Now, I have a way to do it, and people aren't going to like it because I'm Coach Alini. You know, I will be the dictator of this, and I will dice them up the way they need to be diced up. But I don't know if you'll agree either, because it's going to be very, very cold the way I dice them up. I'm going to dice some people up. Some of y'all going to be left out. Some of y'all going to be eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and the rest of us going to be fine dining. All right. And we don't care about you. You know, I think there's other races of people that have this. You know, everybody say white folks have this too, and they call it trailer park trash, or they call it white trash, or they call it other side of the tracks. There's a bunch of things that they distinguish with even their own community, with the losers, with the people who aren't focused, with the people who threw away their lives. They have a segment of their people that they will not deal with at all. And they call them a certain name as to distinguish themselves from that group. All right. Even the northern versus the southerners, the western, northeast, the people in the East Coast versus the West, there's a different vibe even amongst outside of the Black community that they dice people up. And unfortunately, all skin folk ain't kin folk, as you know. Just because I don't understand. I'm sorry, I'll have you talk again. I don't understand. I lived all over the country. There's Black people who are completely different in America. Completely not any of us are the same. We don't grow up the same. So I don't understand that. Then to boil down my behavior and to start with Black, I don't think that's fair to the individual.
Yeah, I think one of your shows, you said something like, you go to another country, you go to like somewhere in the diaspora, you go somewhere in Africa, and you'd be like, no, you're American.
I'm American.
You're more American than you are. Right.
Yeah. When I was in Italy recently and shared the elevator with a Nigerian brother. You know, he didn't look at me like, hey, he's one of me. He did not. I mean, he immediately probably said, this dude's from America, right? He's an American Black man. So he never said, hey, I'm sure he would say, hey, brother. But in the bigger picture, he probably has been around enough Black people to really, in Nigeria, to figure out I'm not one of his brothers.
Yeah. So on my community tab, and I have actually about 10 more things we could talk about, but I'm going to respect your time. On my community tab, I put a question, telling folks that I was going to be interviewing you, and gave them a chance to ask some questions that they want me to ask you. And so I'm going to use the last few minutes kind of talking about that. So one of them is this SBE, okay, shame, blame, and explain. And apparently the term was actually coined by Thai City. It seems that most folks that interface with that term got it from Amir. And Ramil was a original member of the Case Closed program that I do on Sundays. It's Ike Ogiamian and myself. We do a panel style show, and we talk on all kind of things, geopolitics, Black community kind of stuff. And he was one of the panelists. And he's also known for this whole, hoes are winning, this business,
Yes.
But what do you think about this SBE topic? Because it seems to me to be that SBE is being used to shut down any sort of dialogue or criticism of sort of female behavior.
Yeah. I don't know what exactly it means. All I know is it's used against someone that would be in my lane, right? If I go in and say, oh, hypergamy, and these girls are doing it. Like if I go in there, if I hear SBE, really don't know what it means, although Thai City has been a supporter and a viewer for a while. And that I really don't know what it exactly means. Can you explain what it means? Yeah. I just know it's an adversarial point.
Yeah. Shame. So it's like shaming women, saying, hey, this behavior that you're doing, making them feel bad for it. Blaming So the state of, the dating market, it's your fault. This is why X, Y, Z, and explaining using statistics, data, whatever, to explain why it is, or what's actually transpiring. And Tie City actually also adds, and sometimes complaining.
Okay.
So that's what the whole term means. And so the issue that I have with it, and I think that this will maybe provide some clarity, is that it's being used in such a liberal fashion that it has sort of lost what the original sort of intent is. And now it's just being used this way to shut down conversation. Because in one sense, parenting is SBE, preaching is SBE,
sure,
mentorship is SBE,
coaching is SBE, coaching.
Yeah, right. It's all SBE.
Right.
So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think I mean, Tie City, that's a good, I like that they came up with something. I like that they came up with something. It came with the thought. It sounds like to me, and again, I'm being general, I don't know, that it's kind of like we don't care about the story or the statistics. We're gonna go with whatever. I'm not sure what they're going with. What are they trying to use in place? Is there a substitute for SBE? Right? If they say you're SBE, what is the substitute that they're using? I just don't know. I could tell.
So what they believe that it's just a waste.
It's a waste of time.
Done. Yeah, right. It's a waste of time. It's done, and basically, pump and dump. So we know
so go pump and dump.
Right. Okay. So we know what the scenario is. Just face facts that this is how they are, and pump and dump and keep it moving.
Okay,
that's it.
Yeah. So that's their antidote. There has to always be an anecdote or a solution. So I was quite confused. Again, I know Ramil. Again, people think I have time to be listening to everybody. I'm on 2 times a day, 7.5 hours, and plus my regular life and my other channel. So I really don't get into details. I did respond to Ramil on Hoes is Winning, and I like Ramil's passion and his ability to put together thoughts, all right, as well as Tie City. So I'm not adversarial to them as men. Right. I just disagree with the Hoes are winning because I'm of advanced age and I see hoes losing like crazy. It turns on its head quickly. All right. And with this, I'm glad that they're bringing it up. I just think, like you said, it might be used generically as to dismiss anybody that Shane blames and explains. They could just say, hey, that's what you're doing. I'm not going to listen to it anymore. And there also is a sense of, unfortunately, and if you're a popular content creator, you could just put that label on them and then dismiss the person, or we're going to get rid of the manosphere by saying shame, blame, and explain. I think that's what it leads other people to get on the bandwagon to do. And, maybe Tie City, if he created that, didn't have that intent, but, sometimes the followers take it and they run with it.
Of course, they would say that the biggest example of shame, blame, and explaining is Kevin Samuels. See, he's directly having conversations with women, trying to shame them out of this, or trying to tell them that they're going to die alone and all this kind of thing. And now, of course, I think that's a little bit out of context. But speaking of,
can I add something to that? One of the things that I've been very vocal about on my channel is I'm not trying to correct women's behavior at all. Right. I have been very adamant about that. Like when I talk about it, it's not that I want to make them aware and change it. And I think a lot of Kevin Samuels later followers, 2021 to 22, or, that people came in late, they thought he was going to fix women's behavior. So yeah, that could be some shame, blame, and explain. They were like, Kevin Samuels is going to save us and he's going to fix these women. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, right? I'm like, nobody's fixing these women. So yeah, I can see why they would say that shame, blame, and explain, because the fans of Kevin Samuel wanted him to change women. And I don't know if that was his intent either, but that's neither here nor there. All right, next point.
Yeah. So Passport Bros, versus Game Bros versus High Value Man and all this stuff. Which is better for a marriage-minded young man?
You said
Now you
passport,
remember,
bro, game,
yeah,
and
yeah,
what's the other one? High value man.
yeah. So become, become a high value man,
Yeah.
get your game together, or get your passport, which is better for a marriage minded young man.
Well, I mean, I'm like all of them have pros and cons. And I'm going to say the high value man. I mean, because the reality of most Americans is that they're not leaving America. All right. They're not. All right. So I like the idea of the passport, bro, and going to explore the. And matter of fact, people thought, you know, in my book, The Free Agent Lifestyle, one of the portions of the book was to get your passport and go explore the world. I mean, so I was early on a passport bro mindset. But when the idea of the passport bros came in, I thought immediately the looking for a wife thing I thought was ridiculous. All right. I was like, nah, no, no, no. Because if we just frame it like this, those women are already more messed up than American women, right? They've been already doing horror activities, single mothers, and so forth, so on. And they're traditional because there's no big daddy government. Let's just be honest. This is, and anybody that disagrees with me, you would agree that if you brought that same woman here in due time, she would do exactly what the American women do because of what they have access to here. So they're only traditional because of location, right? Location and the government that they reside in. But we know a lot of those young women sell themselves just like American women. So a lot of the things we complain about, those women over there have been doing for years, decades before American women have been doing it. And I don't think going over there for a wife is, and because you're marriage minded, is the best solution. It is for short-term fun. And yes, if you spend a lot of time over there, you might find that you can make a scenario work. But a lot of American men could not survive outside of America. So to send a majority of men to another place, it's just not realistic to live. So for them to be expatriate. Like I mean, if they've never we got people who've never left Flint, Michigan, and we're going to send them on a plane 12, 18 hours away. And we think he's going to survive. He couldn't even survive in the suburbs of Michigan, let alone outside in some of these areas where the government, where shit can hit the fan really quickly. Now, what was the other one? What was it? Pumping or running game? Ridiculous. Ridiculous. I mean, that's not marriage minded. You're not going to get marriage minded. You're going to get broken women and broke women. That's what you're going to get. Straggle daggles. And then I think the high value man at least gives the guy a chance to work on himself to an extent to qualify outside of straggle daggles. All right. So then he can then start to understand people who are either working women, women that have a little bit of balance and perspective, women that aren't just looking for your money per se. So if I was given a choice out of the three, I would say the high value man. But I don't agree with high value man concept either.
So, on one of your shows, you had, you've said, now you've shouted me out numerous times. I really appreciate that. Yeah. It's really helps, you send people over to my channel. I appreciate that. And I had used an expression in one of my streams. I had said, you're either a passport bro or you're a cleanup bro.
Yes.
And in both of those expressions, cleanup bro and passport bro, big truck, he was the person that not passport bro, but cleanup bro is his term.
Okay.
But no one had put that together that way, to my knowledge, until I put that together. And the reason that I do think that more brothers should consider getting their passport, especially young brothers that don't want to have to wait until they're in their mid-40s before they start their family, right? Is because when you look at the divorce rate in America, and according to, in this part of these numbers, I've further researched these, but over a 40-year period of time, the divorce rate is 67%.
67%, yes.
Okay, 67%. And that information came from you. But if you marry someone from another country, the divorce rate is 13%. And And that's even if you relocate. Now, part of the reason I would suggest that that is the case is that the woman has more to lose. So if she relocates from where her family and everything is to here, then all she has is basically your ecosystem.
Right.
Okay. Do you think that that is valid? And this is, by the way, this is not about, trying to take advantage of dirty foot, impoverished women and all that kind of stuff. That ain't what this is about. But what do you think of that aspect of it?
Yeah. So if given the choice because the choice was passport, run game, or high value man. Now, if you say if the choice passport or cleanup, it's passport.
Okay.
It's a no-brainer, right? I mean, I'm going, okay, you're not going to become a high value man. You're not going to run game. You're not going to get your passport. You're going to end up a cleanup bro. So at that point, if cleanup bro is not what you like, passport probably is going to be the better scenario for you. And okay. I think, guys, again, in our culture, we don't move, we don't get out, we don't move, we don't travel, we don't explore. And a lot of times that's because we are uncomfortable with it. We assume people are going to be prejudiced or racist against us, like they might get treatment here. But you will find that once you leave, sure, there's always going to be some sort of prejudice or racist or treatment of people, whether you're foreign or from that place. That might be why you get treated unfairly, not because you're black, but a lot of people are afraid to travel, and they're afraid to travel alone. So young black men don't grow up in families that experience travel. And when I say travel, I mean outside of the United States. So you don't travel with your family outside of the United States. And then when you get between the ages of 18 and 30, 18 and 40, you don't travel outside of that unless you went to the military. And a lot of a lot of black men in the past experience traveled through the military. But, we don't do that at that great numbers anymore. So we're pretty ignorant as to what it is like outside of our borders until we do it. But I believe guys that go to, let's say they become a passport bro and they go to the classic hooker areas, I think you're not experiencing travel. That's been one of my criticisms, because in my book, when I said get your passport, I didn't say go get some booty when you went there. I did say you will get some booty, right? But you want to go out there and do things and experience the world and the culture to understand maybe this is a future place to retire. This is maybe a place to meet my wife the second, third time around that I come through, right? After I go to 15 places, then I know I like these 3. And then I know the culture, learn the language, because guys, I'm going to just tell you, if you choose this path and you'll go over there once, if you don't know the culture and you're in their ecosystem, they're going to take advantage of you. If you don't know how to buy property and have people that you trust, because in many of these places, you can't buy property. If you don't know the language, the mores, the way to communicate, the slang, if you don't know the places outside of the sex tourism or the tourism places, and you only know Pattaya, and Soy 6, right? You don't know how to get to the village. You don't know where the vacation spots are in those areas. It's a disadvantage to you. I would tell a young guy, do not rush into it, taking 2 trips to Colombia and Thailand, and then settling in on those 2, because you might even enjoy another place. And that comes from experience. So getting your passport is an absolute. Blacks don't get their passport, but Americans typically don't get passports either. So because we're able to travel within our country freely, and our country is very large. So Americans typically don't get passport. But black men, if you can't afford traveling, there's ways to be able to afford it. I'm not going to tell you to do it, but
yeah. One of the criticisms of passport bros is that they're too broke to pay for dates here, but now they want to go across seas. Right. They don't realize that it's expensive to travel. You can't be broke and be traveling. So that whole argument doesn't make any sense to me.
Number one, I said those 2 things and they attacked me, the passport bros. And I said, I'm being honest. And I said this, and I remember there were some young men in the live chat that said, I didn't realize this. I said, it's going to cost you $5,000 just to travel. And then so people were like, no, you could do it for cheap and less. I'm like, dude, if you're going to travel, do not do it for cheap and less. I mean, I get cutting corners, but come on. We're not going to do this. If you can't afford to pay dates, can you afford to travel? Traveling is not free. And if you're staying over there for longer than 3 weeks, and what are you going to eat? Noodles every day? That's what, come on, man. You're gonna die of malnutrition, or your sodium's gonna go through the roof. And also, how are you gonna get health care? Right? There's a lot of things we got to consider. And also, last point, isn't that money, energy, attention, and time if you're a passport bro? You're paying. You're paying through travel, airline tickets, hotels, and that. So again, my scenario is to get all men to understand we're all trying to figure out how to do this, but we're all paying. You're going to pay one way or the other.
Yeah. No romance without finance.
That's how it goes.
That's just 100%. All right. So I just have one last question, and then sort of a comment, and then we'll go from there. So one question that somebody asked was, they're curious about your thoughts on the purple pill space, shows that have men and women who talk about dating and mating woes. Do you think that is valuable? Do you think that that's actually going to change anything, help anything? Or do you think it's just a good content strategy, since most men will tune in if women are on the show?
It's great content strategy. I don't blame the content creator at all for engaging in that, because that's going to deliver this medicine in a way where it's more palpable for the general audience. Like if they come to my show, then they go over to their show, they'll stay over there. They're like, I can't deal with that guy doom and gloom over here. So I just think it's hope strategy. Like, what solutions are they having? They're having a conversation. Most of the time they agree to disagree, and everybody moves on, and nothing changes. Nothing moves. Laws don't change, right? The opinion of the woman doesn't change. The woman that agrees with the man is a pick-misha. The man that agrees with the woman is a simp. I mean, it doesn't move the needle, but it does provide for great content.
So I want to say, man, I would watch you no matter what it is, what it was that you talked about, because I think that you're hilarious. You're a funny dude. You have a way to say things that makes it, even if it is doom and gloom CGA, it still is hilarious. It's still funny the way that you put things. You're very entertaining. It wouldn't matter what it was that you talked about. I mean, I find you to be as funny as any of the comedians that I check out. And so I appreciate you having spent all this time developing your craft, and yeah. So, I'm definitely a CGA fan.
All right, appreciate it, man. And even with all the debauchery, I know you're a man of the church. I'll be going in on the church, but I go in on everybody. Everybody's fair game, so it's not personal. Yeah, it's not personal at all.
Yeah. Well, I go in on the church too. I mean, and you have said that you've been checking me out, especially in these morning talks that I have, my Car Thunder episodes. And I've been very critical of Black church. I've been very critical of academia. I've been critical of pretty much anything that I see as being a foe of Black men and boys. Yeah. And I have sort of a refocused purpose in highlighting these issues because I have a son.
There you go.
I have a son. It's important for me to get this stuff out into, because if there can be any kind of movement at all, and every movement starts with a conversation. Every conversation starts with the intellectual capacity to deal, to actually address real issues and be willing to do something, not this, agree to disagree, which most of the time is totally, it's disingenuous garbage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my favorite program of yours, however, is your blue chip mindset.
Oh, yeah.
I really, really enjoy that. And I think that sort of defies this sort of labeling of red pill or black manosphere, whatever, as just basically being a bunch of SBE and, you know, not talking about any of these skills that, you know, men need to develop, the ability to save money, to, you know, to quit wasting a bunch of money on stupid stuff and prioritize your future and all this kind of stuff that you talk about regularly. I just wanted to ask you about blue chip mindset. What caused you to want to do that program? Because I know it's at one point you were a little bit on the fence if it was going to be a regular thing. And I think that your viewers were like, hey, we really want you to do this. And so you started going at least once a week. So what say you?
Well, yeah, it was an idea that I had for quite a long time. And I've tried a lot of different angles on YouTube, and Red Pill took off. But this has always been something that I've been thinking about for a long time. I just didn't have the platform to talk about it. And some people did challenge me on that. You only talk about women. Can't you talk about something else? And I thought it was kind of foolish, because I'm like, YouTube is a niche platform. You don't take your audience and talk about something else completely. And I wasn't sure if the audience would like that type of information. But I just tell you, my audience has matured and developed quite a bit over the few years as well. So people didn't just come in to see me talk about hypergamy. They came in to see me crack jokes. They also see me level up financially, right? It's hard to talk about blue chip mindset and I don't have a Porsche. Now having a Porsche, people are willing to listen, right? They're like, oh, okay, he's doing something right. So now when you have that, people they'll listen to you a lot more, because when I talked about it a little bit in the past, they would just say, oh, you live in your mama's basement still and you drive that busted ass, I didn't have what it took to show and talk about it. Now that I have that, people are more inclined to listen to it. And I think there's a place for this in the future for me as a ability to grow this more, right? I think more people are going to need that part of it in the next 10 years. And it could be, I'm not going to completely pivot, but I think it's going to be something that's going to open up a lane for me to talk more about, if not have another channel, there's a book coming out about it, and it potentially might open it up for a mainstream acceptance of my message, as opposed to just talking about women. But I think all of it goes together. So I'm going to continue to do it, and more coming up.
All right. Well, we'll stick around for a second, but thanks so much for coming on and doing this interview. I mean, I got through about half of my bullet points. I hope at a later date that we can reconvene and do this again.
Yeah.
But thank you for that, and thanks for the support on your platform and mentioning me and all of that. And yeah.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you, man. Good luck with everything. Keep doing what you're doing. I know it's tough, to keep your channels going, and you got jobs and kids and family, but that's how everybody starts. And keep talking, because every voice is important. We don't all have to agree. Every voice is important, and your voice is very important for our space.
Thanks, man.
Indeed. Peace.
All right now.